Services.
Ese.
We'll wait a few seconds here while we
Awesome.
get the folks
Okay.
here to the front. Ladies and
See.
gentlemen, if you can make your way towards the screen. Just a quick show of hands. How many of you have heard of the Department of Local Services? Really? Holy cow, that's excellent. We haven't even actually been officially a department, so we don't go full effect until January 1st, but our primary mission is going to be helping the folks of the unincorporated areas, which is right here in Skyway West Hill, which is why we're helping host this event tonight. My boss will be up here shortly, Director Designee John Taylor. He will be the future director of the proposed Department of Local Services. We also have one of our division directors here, Mr. Jim Chan, who is currently the department director of the Department of Permitting and Environmental Review, who will be the future permitting division director. He will be helping us a great deal with some of these things that we have to do and address with the residents of the unincorporated areas of King County. For the unincorporated areas, we have about 250,000 folks who live in unincorporated King County. That would be the second largest city in the state of Washington, which is why our executive, Dow Constantine, put special emphasis to build this department so that we can more adequately and effectively address the needs that we know sometimes fall through the gaps. But I'm not going to steal my boss's thunder. Let me go ahead and bring him on up there, Mr. John Taylor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can everyone hear me okay? All right. So first off, thank you for coming. Really appreciate it. This is a great turnout. So that's helpful to us because it isn't a very good community plan if the community doesn't actually come and participate in the planning effort. So thank you. So really quickly, I'm going to be the Director of Local Services after January 1st. Right now I'm the acting Director of Local Services until I'm actually officially appointed by the County Council. So the unincorporated area of King County is about 250,000 people. The population of the area that isn't in cities, that's either in pockets like this that feel like a city but are unincorporated, or are out in a rural area when they're out driving through the country and their cows everywhere. There are about 250,000 people that live in unincorporated King County. And unincorporated King County, in my experience, and I've been working in it for about 5 years for King County and another department, doesn't really function the way a city is. If you live in a city and you have a problem, you go to City Hall, right? And go there and you ask someone a question and they answer it, they tell you where to go to get help. In King County, my experience has been it's sort of people rely on folklore and word of mouth and people in the community who've had problems solved before to get problems solved. And that isn't a great way to deliver services to people who pay taxes and live in a community and need help. So the idea of the Department of Local Services is, without actually hiring anybody, when I was appointed by the county executive, they posted my appointment on his Facebook page, and because I couldn't help myself, I went and read the comments. Don't ever do that. It's a bit of advice. And there were like a half dozen that were like, great, another high-paid bureaucrat doing nothing for the county. The idea of this is basically to take people who are already working for the county and reorganize them in a way that delivers better services to you guys, to everyone who's in this room. That's the goal. That's sort of what I've been charged with, and I'm pretty confident that if I'm not able to do that, you won't be seeing me here next year or the year after that. I'll be gone. I've got someone else. We have a great team assembled. This is an amazing group of people who are in this room trying to make this happen. I have really high hopes. I think we're already off to a great start. We've got a great director of permitting in Jim. So that's just an overview of the Department of Local Services. Basically, what we're here to do tonight is not a community meeting, so I just had someone come up to me and ask me where the sheriff is. The sheriff is not here tonight. That's a completely legitimate question to ask, because this feels like a community meeting. We did not invite the sheriff here tonight, so I apologize. It might have been good to have them here as part of this effort. This is a land use planning effort. So, what we're going to be doing here tonight is trying to get input from all of you. We've already got some really good input around these tables. I thought it was awesome to see some of the conversations that were occurring and some of the notes that went up on the board back there. We're trying to build a plan for this community called the Subarea plan. And the idea of that plan is for people in this room who live here to tell us what they want that community to look like. Through zoning, through sort of your aspirations for what you would like to see in terms of land use. And we're going to take input from you tonight, and we're going to be out talking to you. We're going to be going to a number of the organizations and having dialogues with Skyway Solutions and Community Council, and anybody else who comes up to me and says they want to meet. I already have one card for coffee. And we'll be doing some more facilitated meetings, but we want to get input from you on what you want this community to look like, and how you want it to feel, and what goals you have for economic development, commercial centers, and what you want the residential feel of this community to be. And then we're going to take that and we're going to translate it into a plan. And that's where everyone in the room is like, oh God, another plan on the shelf. In this budget that we're working on right now with the King County Council, there is, for the first time ever, an economic development position for unincorporated King County. The county's never had one. And I'm not big about talking about me, but I have a background in economic development. I did economic development work with the city of Seattle, and I did economic development work in the state of Vermont. I moved here from Vermont many years ago. I really believe in economic development. I think good economic development people welded together with a good plan that articulates what the community wants can make a huge difference in the economic fortunes of the community. And an economic development person who's skilled at what they're doing, and we will hire a really good economic development person after January 1st, can attract the kind of businesses that you want to see in your commercial district, meaning businesses that are good community partners, businesses that have high-paying jobs, businesses that strengthen a community. That's critical to improving the economic vitality of a neighborhood. Neighborhoods that have strong economic vitality have better outcomes in terms of crime prevention, have better outcomes in terms of people's fortunes, have better outcomes all the way across the board. So, that's kind of what I'm excited about. That economic development person will be primarily focused on the urban, unincorporated pockets in King County. We have a lot of people in King County. I used to have them in my department who work on agricultural policy and forestry, which are the two big industries out in the rural area. But this economic development person is going to be focused on places like this that need some help in terms of getting their commercial districts up and running in a way that's going to straighten. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Bradley. Yeah, sure.
So beyond the position, is there going to be funding to support businesses in our community, especially small businesses as well as businesses owned by already?
There's,
We just don't need a person to give the money.
so I guess what I would say to you is, to be really candid, no, but the people make the money come. If you don't have someone who knows how to go look for the money, doesn't know where the grants are, doesn't have the time to actually put in going and finding the money for that purpose, you're never going to get it. So it's sitting out there. It's somewhere. It's in Olympia. It's in D.C. Maybe with private foundations. But you need to have somebody who's actually dedicated to helping you form the partnerships that brings that money to the table. In this executive budget, there is no money for small businesses for anything that you just described. So I'm not going to lead you down the primrose path on that one. But what I
Put it on your plan.
yeah, it could be. So once this economic development person comes on board and spends some time working in the community, they could come back in 2 years and go, you know what we need? We need a grant fund for this. And then we would go to the council and we would argue for that. But without the person to actually identify the need, without the plan, without the community outreach, without all the things that we want to do here, you're never going to be able to make an argument for anything. And it's people who can make arguments that make resources come. Yes, ma'am.
Have you written the job description yet? Can you include that person experience in working with community?
Yes, I can. That's a great idea. And in fact, if it would be helpful to you guys, I would be happy to share the job description with Skyway Solutions or the Community Council, if you thought that would be beneficial.
Yes.
Would that be beneficial, Skyway Solutions? Would that be beneficial, community?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so we're happy to do that. We have not written it. It's in my head, like a lot of stuff these days. Any other questions before I hand this off to Brad Clark? We're going to have time for Q&A later on, so I don't want to burn up time, because he's going to tell you what we're going to be doing, but we're going to be looking for input from you over the next hour. So, one more, and then I'm going to turn it over.
How many unincorporated areas exist at this time?
Well, there's a huge swath of unincorporated area. In terms of what I would call urban centers, Brad, how many are there? Yeah. Three. So Falls City, White Center, and Skyway. And Vashon. Four.
Fairwood.
Yeah, Fairwood.
East Federal.
Thanks, Dave. Yeah, there's a back there. Yeah, they're five. I just wanted the record to show Bradley is the planner. Okay? So there are five. There might be six. We probably forgot one. All right, I'm turning it over now. So, again, in all seriousness, thank you very much for coming tonight. Really, really appreciate you being here. And we look forward to working with you more as we move forward on this. Thanks very much.
In defense of my answer, everything that I think about these days is Skyway West Hill. So, there's only one. That was a nice saying. There's only one urban center, right? So, thank you. It's great to have folks here. See several new folks, and that's always encouraging. And we hope that maybe after tonight you'll have some tools that you can take with you to reach out and invite some neighbors and folks that maybe otherwise don't usually think about these kinds of events. We would love to hear their voices as well. So, two basic things that we're going to try to do here over the next 30 to 40 minutes. One is just to give you a really quick overview of what exactly is this plan that we're talking about, what is it going to try to accomplish, and then second, we're going to spend more than half the time on 9 questions of a live poll and a survey so we can get some sense of the room here and some of your opinions about some planning issues. So we'll shoot to be done with this part of it probably about 8:10, 8:15 or so, and that would give you another 15 minutes to kind of meander around. And if you want to go back to some of the tables or fill out some more some comment sheets or finish off whatever cookies are left, that would be great. So a little bit of background. This community, as many of you know, is not really is not new to planning. This is a list of some of the documents that this community has worked on in the past. The first one, the West Hill Community Plan, is the only King County document that's up there. That is the actual existing adopted plan for this community, and that's what the first booth did when you came in. That was asking you for comments about that. So if you still think that everything in Skyway West Hill should be as it was in 1994, then you don't need to comment. But my guess is most of you would see that there are some significant changes that need to take place. So I won't go into the rest of them, but just so you know that there has been a lot of good thinking in this community about the future and what you want to be. The Skyway West Hill Action Plan is the one that probably most of you are familiar with, that had about a 2-year effort that Skyway Solutions led, and King County had one person assisting with that as well. So we'll talk a little bit more about how this plan interfaces as we go along. This is just showing the community. I'm assuming that you all know what we're talking about. It's about 3.2 square miles. More or less bounded by Martin Luther King on the south and Rainier Avenue on the north. And you've got the 3 city boundaries that are adjacent to this unincorporated area. These are some statistics. If you've been at some other planning meetings, you've already seen some of these. These are 2015 numbers. So it could be slightly off, but they're more or less accurate. I think the population's persons of color certainly stands out on this list, 72% within the Skyway West Hill area as compared to 37% for King County as a whole. And then some other You can think of them as opportunities, or you can think of them as challenges, and that's with the median house price is quite a bit lower here, as is the median household income, the second one from the bottom. So what are some of the things that this document is going to try to, well, it is going to address? This is basically a document that's looking at the built environment. What do we mean by that? We mean the land, we mean the buildings on the land, we mean improvements to the land. So it does deal with the densities and the number of houses in some of your neighborhoods, and lots of other things. We'll be updating the maps, we'll be talking about some design standards for the commercial areas, scenic view protection, which is going to be one of the questions here in just a minute, and then one of the main thrusts that John mentioned earlier was the prioritized actions and having an implementation piece to this plan so that it has teeth that the community can get behind and the county can get behind. What we experienced in the 2015 Skyway West Hill Action Plan was a number of different actions, and they kind of divide up into some that are more or less county actions and those that are maybe more appropriately community actions. There's many. I just wanted to put up here an example so you can see what the focus of this plan is. It is a King County plan. It's going to be on things, like zoning and, neighborhood parks and doing infrastructure kinds of work. But there's lots of other work that is ongoing already and can continue to happen that is going to need to come from within the community itself. And the county is certainly there as a partner in that. But this plan really isn't intended to address those things in particular. If you want to raise them, we certainly can talk about how they fit into the plan, but I just wanted to draw your attention that this document is focused on King County types of actions. Just really quickly, here's the schedule for it. It's 1 year, started in July of this year and ends in June of 2019. We are in the middle of Q2, and this is the first forum for this process. The second forum is shown in bold there under Q3. So the goal here is it's going to move pretty quickly, but we are going to have many opportunities to dialogue with you, both in some of your existing neighborhood groups as well as online. We're going to have some more digital engagement opportunities. Be watching for that early part of 2019 when the public review draft, which will be, I think, a more meaningful document probably for you to actually look at and grab a hold of. I mean, we recognize this is pretty open-ended here tonight. We just wanted to hear your ideas and get your thoughts without sort of putting a lot in front of you. So, but at the beginning of 2019, you will see an actual document that you can respond to. And then it ends in well, I shouldn't say it ends. The executives part ends in June of 2019 when the plan is transmitted to the county council. And at that point, they will take up to another year to have more public hearings, more input, and then it would ultimately be adopted in mid-2020. So that's the current schedule. So that's kind of a quick overview. Would like to invite Karen Freeman-Myring up. She is with the Executive's Office, and talk a little bit about how this plan relates to annexation.
Hi, Karen. Some of you know me as Karen Freeman. That's not my name anymore. I got married and I changed my name to Myring, but I haven't put Freeman in there because some of you know me as Freeman. And there's 3 Karens in my office, so a lot of people just call me Freeman. Welcome to Karen. My job in the Regional Planning Office and the Executive's Office is to work on annexations. I've been doing that for 12 years, I think, a really long time. And so my job tonight is just to talk a little bit about annexation, what it is, and how it's not what we're going to be engaging in with this sub-area plan. But we recognize that annexation questions and issues will likely come up, and we're making a commitment to put those in a parking lot and route those questions and issues to me so that I can help answer your questions and run down issues related to annexation. So as you know, West Hill is an urban unincorporated area in King County, and Skyway is a community in that area. And for planning purposes, land use planning purposes, we refer to it as a potential annexation area, or a PAA. And the Growth Management Act, which is a state law that guides how we grow and transform related to land use, envisions that counties are the providers of regional services and local services to rural areas, which typically are lower levels of service. And it envisions this organic process where when communities grow denser, lots of people move to that area, that they would at that time work with a city that borders them to annex into that city so that you can access urban level services. Because cities have a more robust and diverse financing streams that allow them to provide urban level services. And the county has a less diverse, less robust set of financing streams, which we use to focus on regional services and again, local services to rural areas, which are typically lower. So regional services would be like public health services, managing communicable disease outbreaks, or keeping the restaurants safe, or superior court system. Those are the kinds of things that counties were designed to focus on. The wonderful thing about annexation is also a challenge about it, which is that the legislature wanted it to be this very organic process where community members have input into the city that they're going to annex to, which is wonderful, but we recognize that folks have different opinions about annexation, and whatever your opinion is about annexation, it is valid and valuable and welcome. My job is to help the community understand the pros and cons of annexation, and there are pros and cons, and to run down facts, share facts with you as we partner with the city that wants to annex an unincorporated area like West Hill, so that you have all the information that you need should an annexation ballot measure come before you so that you can make a decision. Now, your history with annexation is that in 2012, the city of Renton did try to put forward a ballot measure for annexation, and the community rejected it. So that was quite a while ago, 6 years ago. And since that time, the city of Renton has said, you know, gosh, we have a lot on our plate. We've completed 2 very large annexations, which they did, the East Renton Plateau and the Benson Hill communities. And they have 3 large potential annexation areas that they have claimed, West Hill, Fairwood, and East Renton. And they just feel like it's a really heavy lift for them right now, and so it's not something that they're actively pursuing. Should questions related to annexation come up, or issues related to annexation, I think that's really natural. We'll just put them in a parking lot, route them to me, and I have some of my business cards tonight if anybody wants them. I'm happy to talk with anyone about your annexation questions as this separate land use project moves forward, so that you get the questions answered that you have. Thank you.
Oh, you had a question? Karen, please.
Thank you very much. My question is, for Skyway people to decide to or not to decide,
Yes.
there's something that counts there.
Yes.
Usually in my culture, when I get married, everybody has to have something to bring to people. So, is the county going to prepare us for
works is that a city claims an unincorporated area as their potential annexation area, but that doesn't mean that you're forever tied to that city. So I love the way you describe that as a relationship, right? So it's my job to be in that relationship with the community and with potential annexing cities to help you understand what the issues are, what the process is. And if the community felt at some time that, you know, maybe Rentham wasn't the best fit and they wanted to talk to another city that bordered them, like Seattle, I can help you with that conversation and to answer those questions. Again, it's an organic process. People have lots of different opinions, and that's completely appropriate, but it's my job to help you through that process, and I'm here and available to you whenever you need me to do that. So what we did in 2004, we had an annexation initiative where we really focused on annexation. We went down to Olympia and we said, help us realize this goal of moving urban areas into cities because they are best positioned to serve urban populations with urban services. And they gave us a tool, a financial tool to help us do that. And they said, you can pool the sales tax that's gathered in that area that you usually send down to the state, and you can just keep it and give it to the city that's going to annex you. That worked for 8 large urban areas. And for the 5 large areas that are left, West Hill, Fairwood, East Renton, and Federal Way, the tool didn't generate enough funds to really fill the gap that the city had identified. And so, and to answer someone's questions, there's actually just under 100 smaller islands, too. Lots of little tiny islands all over the county. So it's this wonderful organic process where everyone's involved, but it also makes it a challenge. So what I envision is partnering with communities that are urban unincorporated areas and the cities that have claimed them to talk about what kind of tool would we need that would work, that would help a city with that lift. And I am here to have that conversation with you. And I think that those kinds of issues will come up as part of this process, and it will help us with that conversation.
Excellent, thank you for that. Hey, listen, I guess you've been around for 12 years, eh? So that means you were around when the mandate was first enacted?
When the what?
When the mandate for incorporation was first enacted?
Oh, when the growth management Act was passed
annexation, I'm sorry.
in 1991, I believe?
Ah.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm sort of curious. Does that mandate mean that we're held hostage, or because we don't get those services, or we're blackmailed to join a city, and until we do that, we don't get these services, or we get inhumane treatment while this is going on? I guess I'm curious because when I see something going on in an unincorporated area where they get $1 million for a winery, and all I want is a stop sign. What's human here? The winery or my stop sign?
So thank you for the question. It's not a mandate. Again, like I mentioned, it's an organic process, a partnership between community and cities and the county. And like I said, it is a difficult challenge, right? Because counties were designed to provide regional and rural services, and cities were designed to provide urban services. The legislature wanted to empower communities to have a voice in what city you go to. And that just makes it messy, and it takes a little bit of time for communities to make that decision, to get to 50+1 when you decide what city you want to partner with. Thank you.
Okay, so in the interest of time, I'm just going to say, and I was facing the wall, so I didn't see who asked the question.
I'm big and black.
There you go, thanks. Kind of my mandate, what I've been directed to do, is try to build a system where we're providing the best services we can.
You're the new czar.
Yeah.
We got a different czar now.
Yeah. So, I mean, the goal is by creating this department, by knitting together the road services division, and we're going to have contracts with the stormwater utility, human services, animal control, and public health, that we'll be able to actually set some service standards for the people who live in this community, and then we'll be held accountable for it. So my expectation is when you have a community service meeting here this year, we're going to be coming out, as we always come out with a PowerPoint, because we're required to by law. Joe. But that PowerPoint will have performance metrics that say these are the things that we're going to be doing for this community. And if we're not doing them, you'll have something to say about it. Now, is that everything you want? No, sir, it's not. Because this isn't a city.
Oh, and a stop sign is not something that
No,
is
it's
negotiable.
If you want a stop sign, then let's have a conversation about having a stop sign.
My letters have been ignored, I'm
Okay,
sorry.
well, so I'll tell you what, you can send them to me now, and I won't ignore them.
So another 5-year study, okay. I guess another question I have is,
Okay,
where's Seattle here?
one more question.
Yeah,
and
okay.
then we gotta get
Where's
moving along.
Seattle? So I'm curious as to, when Seattle gets their federal funding, they use this population for that, for state and federal funding. Did the county do the same thing? Did they use this population to get their county funding? And where's the money for the community from that funding?
I actually don't know the answer to that
All right,
question.
okay.
Okay.
Probably other human services.
Yeah,
Like housing.
yeah, I just don't know how we use the,
CD community block.
It was double dip, guys.
yeah. So I just don't know the answer to that question. And if I gave you one, I would be making it up, and that's not a good thing to do at a public meeting. I learned that at my first public meeting. Okay, so with that said, we have a bunch of questions to run by you, and who is doing the question asking? Okay.
All right, everyone. Everyone ever watch Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? You Who Wants to Be a Millionaire fans, real quick? All right, you know when they poll the live studio audience for the questions and you pick which one? That's what we're going to do right now. Live studio poll. Okay. So let me go ahead. This just real quick, just some real rules on this. This is not a scientific poll in any way, shape, or form. This is a snapshot in time of the folks in this room. This helps us gauge trends and think of ways that we can start addressing those trends. But it also gives you transparency to see how your community members and folks feel in the real time. What we're going to do now is you guys can go ahead and whip out your cell phones. Go to slido.com. SLIDO.com.
On your, wait, what about your tablet? I
If
can't
you do not have a cell phone, we have paper copies in the back. We will take those copies and make sure that they get added to this. Unfortunately, your results will not be in the live studio polling. You will not be helping anybody win $1 million tonight.
Would anybody like to have a paper copy? Please raise your hand.
Is there Wi-Fi in here? Because the
Yes.
server is bad in here.
Do you have a copy and tag along?
It should be the RSD. It should be free. You should be able to not log in without a password. Yes, RSD. If you use your own data, yes, your data rate charges do apply, but it is very small.
So are you going to go through question by question, or are we?
Yes. We're going to go through question by question. You can skip ahead, but some of the questions that you see have pictures. So it might behoove you to be going along with the group. You can also send me questions, and I will send those questions to the studio audience as well, so that you guys see what's going on. When you get to slido.com, just enter the passcode Skyway Plan and the hashtag. Skyway Plan, not case sensitive, all one word. And then join the little green arrow right there. Just press it. You should join the event.
Some sidewalks.
This poll is open through November 30th, so please feel free to share it with your friends, community members, preferably people who love and care about your community just as much as you do. We don't want people from Bellevue getting into your survey, so again, spread it amongst your friends, neighbors, and those you know who have a vested interest in this place.
The S is capital.
Yeah, we'll have an introduction to each question.
Some of the questions are designed to be guided through, so it might just help y'all just be a little bit patient as we go through. Has everyone had a chance to at least get to this page and log in? Okay, we'll wait a few more seconds.
If you need Wi-Fi, you have to select a guest, the
RSD guest.
RSD guest.
It should the one without the lock in front of it. That should let you in. And again, if you need paper copies, they're right back here. Mr. Ivan Miller from our executive office has them. And we will make sure your input gets put into this survey. Just make sure you leave it at the desk with one of my two folks who are manning their Bomb Store Domingo. or French and Paco. We'll make sure we get those added into the survey. All right, a few more seconds. Everyone, okay? Okay.
It's taking forever, so if you get on there. Oh, yeah, I'm already like stuck. It's just. Thank you. Is this your tablet? Do you have it?
Some of you are answering already. Look at that.
Maybe not. Like connected to your cell network? No. Okay. But it's on the internet. And I have Wi-Fi. Because my Wi-Fi's off. It just usually works better if I don't even deal with it. It's true.
So we will leave it open for just a couple more seconds on this first one. So the question this one has to do with open space and which type would you visit more often? So it looks like we got about 2/3. Well, the numbers have changed. If you'll notice in the upper right-hand corner, the number of people who are participating at this time. So far, only 4 people have answered this question. So as we get more questions, more people to respond, these numbers
One question I have is there's a question area in this, will you be responding to questions that we ask there?
Go ahead and send me your questions, and I'll at least put the ones that are most appropriate to the audience as I can at the end, okay?
Stop it. Try it again.
Well, we seemed like we had more than 6 using their phones, but maybe as we go on here, we'll have more. So is there?
Should we just raise our hands and count the numbers? Would that be simple?
All right, okay? Yeah.
Thank you. I can't even comment on this. Because I don't have an app.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, so let's go back to PowerPoint. We'll move on. So, just to be clear, on terms of housing, well, we've already kind of covered this. When we in the survey, whenever it says Skyway West Hill, we are talking about the entire area. So because most of these questions do use that term. So that lighter area is Bryn Mawr and Burlington and Lake Ridge and all of the full area. So we wanted to be clear on that. So these first couple questions have to do with, the next two I should say have to do with housing. And, well, we've already done that. Here we go. So these are traditional single-family type housing. This is about 70% of all the housing stock that's in Skyway West Hill today.
Mid-century home.
You know, your single-family house. It has a yard and usually in the garage. And, usually there's one driveway per unit. So that is the majority of what you currently have. What we're trying to get at with these questions really are not about this type of housing stock, but about 2 other types. So let's show pictures of those there, Jerry. So this is a middle level type housing stock that is actually already permitted in Skyway West Hill. There's not a lot of them. So the one on the left there is it's usually called like townhouses, so they're attached. But they are on their own lot, so those are still single-family dwellings, as are the courtyard type on the right. So these require more permits, more fees, and more time to construct today than if you just came in and wanted to do a single-family house. So there's a lot of vacant land in Skyway West Hill. If you haven't seen the map over here, there's about 10% of all of the land in this area is vacant. So we're trying to anticipate what kinds of housing maybe this community would like to see.
One thing I can tell you is on the way here, walking, just south of Langston Road, I passed the development that's building 38 townhouses in one development, 7 separate buildings.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. That is a good point. Of all the new development applications right now, there are several that are townhouses. So we can go ahead and go to the question itself. So question 2, do you think more mid-level housing, like townhouses or courtyard apartments, should be built? And the first option is only where similar types of housing exist. The second is only in commercial districts like Skyway Business District. Or should they be built everywhere in Skyway West Hill? Nowhere, or do you have another opinion? So, yes.
Brad, before we answer the question, can you pull up a map that shows the Skyway Business District?
Yes, actually, it is I think it's 2 slides down in the PowerPoint there. Here we go. So this is the Skyway Business District in the red and the purple area. So the big yellow one in the middle is Skyway Park. Sorry, it's not green. So basically, you have Renton Avenue, the curvy one that connects the north part of the business district and the south part of the business district. So that's
Can we not dedicate that area? Can we not dedicate that area for commercial use to encourage jobs and a larger tax base?
Yeah, it's a good point, Tom. I mean, they think there's no anticipation that the purple or the red, which is the commercial businesses, would change. When we say business district, we're actually talking about all the other stuff around it as well. So not just where the businesses sit today, but the houses surrounding. So this question is getting to: do you think that those kinds of townhouses and cottage type housing? Do you think that there should be more of those? And one of the options was only put them kind of in this area. So we go back. Well, now we have 15 people that voted, so we have more than double the number. That's good.
And you can't change your mind on
You can.
That's how they do it in the legislature.
It's like,
Like fool you.
So about half of those 15 anyway are saying put those really only where those similar types of housing already exist. So, okay. Well, like we pointed out, this will be open. So we'll go ahead and keep moving on. Right. So this gentleman's comment was, doesn't it make more sense to put higher density housing like that along transit corridors? And maybe that's another option.
Everywhere in Skyway, you don't have the road infrastructure to handle it. It won't be the point of building high density housing. Or is one of the key reasons. I don't know what's
Yeah. Okay, good. Moving on. So this moves to a next level of density, and if you're familiar with Creston Point and some of the other multifamily projects that are down MLK, this would kind of get to that type of housing. So these are usually at least 15 and sometimes over 100 units in one of these areas. They are typically at least 3 stories and sometimes more in height. So this is multifamily, sometimes called apartments. So this is question 3.
But this is not mixed use, is that right?
That's correct. This would exclusively residential type, yeah. Sorry?
So for these builders, what kind of requirements do they have to add sidewalks, trees?
There are. So the question was, are there any requirements for multifamily housing that the developer has to put in landscaping or amenities? And the answer is yes. If they come in today, there is required open space that they have to put in, depending on the number of units, the playground. They are required to do sidewalks, and if they're adjacent to a street, they have to do street trees. So those rules are in place.
Can we give her the mic so we can hear the question, please?
They don't want to hear us. Hey, Gardner, how you doing? Tom Gardner, we're proud.
Can you summarize that
Sure.
question
Yeah,
and
we'll have to
repeat
start
for us?
handing this around. Thank you for that. So I'll try to summarize. So that you're saying when you're thinking about voting for this question, you're saying you don't want to support this kind of housing if it does not have adequate space for children to play. So I think it's a good point, and maybe it's a comment that you could make in addition to this, so that if that's a concern. Okay. So one of the things that these plans do is they gives us the opportunity to change portions of the code, or at least recommend changes to portions of the code if there's a lot of, if we recognize through the planning process that there's a problem. So we will do that. So, okay. Sorry, you're going to have to use this.
What about support for fire and sheriff and police? Do developers have to, do they add into that? Because that's going to cost more when you bring more people in.
No, it's a good question. Jim would probably be best to answer it.
Some large apartment complexes that way don't actually pay any parking. So they don't support
My
the
question
sheriff.
kind of goes back with what she was asking about. When developers create these places, they are required to do certain things. Does that include helping local sheriff in our instance and fire and all that stuff?
So in our development code, the more density you build, the more requirements you have. So the more parking you need, the more street trees you need, the more open space you need, recreational spaces. So, but in terms of contribution to services, regional services, that general tax is based on that.
So how do we change it?
We're trying to change that in a moment.
Yeah, we've got about 10 minutes to get through 6 questions. So, one more.
So I'm going to clarify it for you. Because we are part of the county, because we are part of the county, in this area, your fire protection is provided by King County Fire District 20, which is supported by property tax money and special maintenance and operations levy. And it is correct that there are certain housing developments in the area that do not pay property tax. Your water and sewer service is generally provided by Skyway Water and Sewer District, and that infrastructure is supported solely by the rates that you pay. There's no tax money involved, there's no money from the county.
Okay. So we have, we'll go ahead and keep moving. That's, so these are ratings, as you probably have seen on there for the next couple. There's 10 stars, and the more you feel about it, the higher end is the 10. So this question number 4 is talking about the same apartments, but King County should encourage more apartments and multifamily along the Martin Luther King Highway 900 corridor. So that's in comparison to the Skyway Business District area that was before.
And I would have appreciated if you would have also asked a question about
mixed use along the Highway 90.
Okay?
So I have a question. So Crescent Point, I believe, is the one that's currently out over there. There's 0 sidewalks for them, and it is incredibly dangerous right next to a 50-mile-per-hour road. What is the responsibility of either the county or the housing developments to provide better infrastructure as far as roads, but most importantly, especially for safety reasons, sidewalks along that area? Because I cannot imagine adding another Crescent Point type of place without adequate sidewalks and safety precautions. It's ridiculous.
Is that development on state highway 900?
Yes.
It's on 900, yeah.
That's why, because that's state control.
Well, so what we need is a local services department that's willing to run some interference and partner with the State Department of Transportation on that.
And here he comes.
Thank you.
With that said, stay on. Nice work, John. There we go.
No.
Yeah, there it is. And you did. You didn't hear that. But I think with the caveat that working with the State Department of Transportation is never a walk in the park. I've never known it. A question I have for Jim is when we have big development submittals, do we ever require sidewalks as a condition of the permit?
Yeah. Oh, I think there's a sidewalk in front of Crescent Point.
Yeah.
But it's hardly adequate for the.
Yeah, understood.
But there are planners in WADOT, Washington Department of Transportation, and they would be anxious to work with local governments. And in fact, Renton has become a master at finessing state dollars for projects. They got a transit center built downtown, and now they're saying, oh, wait a minute, we want it over here, and the state's going to support them to build a new transit center.
Well, we will.
So there are ways, if, like you said with the economic development, if somebody knows the right kind of pathways to finesse.
All right, let's keep moving along. Giving it back to Brad.
So, let's go back to the PowerPoint real quick so we can just clarify what this affordability question is about. So this next question has to do with affordable housing. The last ones, it doesn't mean that they could not be affordable housing, but this question is specific to that. And when we just wanted to define this for everybody in the room, when we say this term, we're talking about housing that's affordable for people who earn 80% or less of the area median income. And it's a county-wide figure. This isn't the Skyway West Hill number. So these are just representative numbers. So for one person, that's 50,400, and for four-person household, that's about 72,000. So those are approximate numbers for the household that would qualify either that figure or less to be able to reside in affordable housing. So this question is, should that kind of housing that houses people at those income levels be provided? So the question is, King County should offer development incentives for more affordable housing in Skyway West Hill.
Sounds like a
Sorry, Jeff?
opening for abuse.
Income is measured on rent, or are you?
Yeah, because then you they get all tax exempt for
Right.
our population growth.
Well, no, 30% is still
That's
used.
total abuse by
Yeah.
the developers.
It's easy to check that 10.
Yeah, we don't need that.
Okay,
People understand how it
got
actually
a
works.
couple more questions here. This one is dealing with scenic views, and many parts of the community, as you all know, have some fantastic views. The 1994 plan actually has several locations identified where these kinds of views would be protected. And when we say protected in this sense, we're talking about, for example, like a neighborhood park or some other area that's open to the public that could be used that would be at that area that would benefit from the view, not necessarily just individual houses, but actually having public space that you could go to benefit from this view. So. The whole south side, yes, it is fantastic. Yeah. Now, how important is it to you that King County protects public scenic views and vistas? So the number of people has increased in 23, and we have almost half that feel pretty strongly that that's important to you, that the county put resources toward that kind of effort in this community. Okay, two more questions here. So, I guess we have three actually. So the pedestrian features, so these are things like front doors of a business facing Renton Avenue, or putting street trees, or windows of the buildings facing the sidewalks, so you don't have large blank walls that face the public streets. Those kinds of things.
Usable sidewalks.
So those features are actually already required in the code today for businesses in the Skyway Business District. Those requirements are not in place for the Rainier Avenue commercial area or the MLK commercial area. So these are those districts that we're talking about. On the far right is the Rainier Avenue, and then of course Skyway Business District we already talked about, and MLK. So
MLK Business District is a 50-mile-an-hour speed limit highway. So
yes.
you might consider that
sidewalks.
Yes.
They do.
And that's
Northbound.
good consideration. So in this question, pedestrian standards like these should be required in other commercial areas, not only in the Skyway Business District.
It'd be real cool to be able to walk to a grocery store on the sidewalks.
Yes.
Is that number any different?
50.
Numbers look like they're almost exactly the same.
Vehicle access points, are those driveways, or are they
Yes.
like routing into a parking lot, or?
No, a vehicle access point would be, the driveway where it enters either Renton Avenue or Rainier or the state highway. Question 8, what topics related to commercial area revitalization do you perceive as needing the highest degree of attention? So this is like the first question, you have different ways to rank these. Give you just another minute or so to look at that. And the last question has to do with potential for displacement. So if you pay attention to the news at all for the City of Seattle, you probably are familiar with this word, but basically, growth and development bring both pros and cons, and, the increased opportunity for jobs and everything, the benefits that come with that, but there's also increased risks for higher prices, higher taxes, and what is that impact on the community? So thinking about these trade-offs when we're talking about the benefits and the detractions of growth and development, the last question here is how would you rate your level of concern about the potential displacement of residents and businesses from Skyway due to future growth and development? Okay. Thank you very much. We will be keeping this open for another couple of weeks, and we'll see how the responses change. If you signed up on the sign-in sheet in the back, you will be added to the bulletin that we send out related to this plan, and that will give you updates on this survey. So we are at 8:15. We've got about 15 minutes now for open dialogue. We've been able to put some of that in place here as we've gone along, but is there maybe somebody that has not had the opportunity to speak that either have a question, a comment, or maybe something around these tables that kind of triggered your ideas or thoughts that you want to share?
Hey, Brad, one note too. Questions that some of you brought into the poll I released, so you guys can also vote on some of these questions if you'd like, do the app. But if you want to address these now, we can also address them later. These are some of the questions that you did.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I asked you to use this, sorry.
More of a technology question, but is there any way to embed Slido in other platforms like Facebook or Nextdoor so more of our neighbors can participate in it?
Yes. Yes. So all you got to do is put the slido.com link, and just put the hashtag Skyway Plan, and anybody who has access to the internet can go to it. Okay?
I'll put that on the West Hill community
Perfect.
post on Facebook.
Oh, great.
You're being filmed, by the way.
Put it on the Facebook West Hill
Community Council.
Community Council page. This is the link for that. Great. Thank you, Erica. Anyone else? Comments, questions about the plan, the schedule, any of these topics that?
If nobody else has a question, I have a question. So in your timeline that you showed earlier about what was going to happen with the plat and so forth, one of the things I did see that I think is important, because one of the things that I saw in the stats that you provided was like over 70% is people of color living in this neighborhood. And so for me, the equity analysis is important. So where is the equity analysis in your timeline? And who's doing it?
Right. It's an extremely valid question, and one that the Skyway West Hill Action Plan actually dedicates quite a bit of time to looking at. One of the challenges with the direction that we have been given from the county council with this type of plan is that it is largely intended to be focused on land use. Now, does that mean there's not
There's an equity
an
analysis.
equity issue? I'm not saying there's not. The third question,
Equity goes through everything. You can't say that we don't have a role in land use. I mean, one of the reasons I chose to live in this neighborhood is because it is diverse. I do want it to stay 80%. I don't want us here 10 or 20 years later where we're talking about gentrification and we're no longer here, so how are we going to get here again? Once it happens, we're gone. And I'm not leaving. And so I want to know, how is it going to be, reviewed? Do you have staff that has that expertise? King County has the Equity and Social Justice Initiative, right? So this is a King County initiative, so they should go hand in hand. So where is it?
yeah. No, you're right. There is a number of staff that are dedicated to that at the department. And actually, this is kind of making me think, and I don't know if maybe Lauren or Ivan want to respond to that, since they're in the executive office, which is where the ESTA is at. Maybe there's some ways we can link that together.
Absolutely. I mean, you're exactly right, especially when it comes to land use. All of our work at the county, through our Equity and Social Justice Initiative, we are endeavoring to do all of our work looking through that lens, and so that includes this work as well. So we have an equity impact review tool. We're going to be releasing at the end of the year our marijuana report, and that contains an equity analysis as well. So my response to that is that this work will also be viewed through an equity lens, and we should have a conversation about that.
We should have been part of this conversation today. I mean,
Yes, I can. So when you think about land use, and when you think about displacement, when you think about what happens to a community when you go in and you change the land use and zoning, and a developer comes in and they build a new building, and the apartments cost $500,000, $600,000, and people that used to live in the community cannot live there anymore. That means you have to look at your decisions about policy and zoning through a lens that will let you figure out what are the impacts to the community from an equity standpoint. Does that make sense?
Also, when we say equity lens,
Right.
let's say a developer
theoretical
I don't want to be
example.
theoretical, I want to be practical. Right? So theory aside,
Right.
what makes gentrification is that doing the same work. Who in equity we see, like in that same work, who's doing that work? How the cost of that work is expensive with John Doe and with another John Doe. So that is also something that needs that attention of equity as well.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
and also the distribution of the wealth.
Yes,
Who's building
absolutely.
this and who's not
Well,
building
and what other policies do we have that play into this?
Yes.
What is the transportation policy? You know, what is the housing policy?
What communities naturally gravitate to meetings like this?
Exactly. So,
And which ones need more or different outreach?
exactly. So we will be looking at this work with that in mind. And we should be talking more with you about that and what does it mean? Because anytime you make land use interventions in a community, it changes things. And so we need to make sure that we're doing everything we can so that the people that live here can continue to live here. Absolutely, thank you.
I have a comment. I have a comment about the transportation needs for the community. The main arterial through the community is Renton Avenue South. And we're really not served very well by public transit. We're not on the light rail corridor. 405 runs around us. We have some bus routes that go through the community. There's some public transit, but it's not focused on Renton Avenue South, kind of goes hither and thither. So there isn't really a good transportation focus. In fact, there is also a major transportation problem. The community going from the southwest to the northeast is completely disconnected. The people from Preston Point don't have a good transportation method to get to the businesses. The people up in Bryn Mawr, they have cars, but there's not a transportation system that might allow more mixed income people to live in Bryn Mawr. There should be some kind of public transit connection for the future before we start thinking about the Jetsons that allows us to connect the community in that way. That is a major problem for this community. And that transportation problem in need needs more attention.
Are you thinking coming up 84th, or are you thinking of?
I don't know what it would be, because the roads all run from the northwest down to the southeast. But the communities, though, if you look at the income spread too, there should be more connection between lower income sections of the community with the higher income sections of the community, and they both should be connected in the commercial areas so people can mix and get to know each other better. And the transportation network should facilitate that, not prohibit it or make it difficult.
And get us to the light rail also. It's really hard to get to the light rail. You gotta drive your car over there.
And for example, this community where we are in the Arlington area, you really have to fairly consider the road network here a rural road network style. So what is the 20-year plan for the road network in the Arlington community? And what's the vision? And how is that going to be then impressed on whatever development?
And that's yet another benefit to John being head of this department that has road services in it. So those kinds of connections, because they're logical connections. They make sense.
So, I mean, I think in terms of the plan, we want to capture everything you just said. But I want to be really candid with people. 20-year plan for the road network is not very much. I mean, the reality within King County is we have a road fund that is rapidly being depleted. And in the absence of new revenue, we won't have a capital improvement program in about 5 years.
But in terms of land use policy and permitting, roads are required, and unless there's an overlay that is somehow part of the planning process, then what you're going to get is haphazard
one-off.
I'm absolutely in favor of it being part of the planning process and talking about it. I just don't want to lead anyone to believe that there's going to be a huge infusion of cash to connect the road network and make the community better integrated in the short term, because that money is not there.
Well, given that, and given that it's been going in the wrong direction for this community at least, because we probably are the smallest person at the table in those discussions over the past 25 years. Buses really need to be considered. And what I'm talking about, bus routes that respect the needs of this community.
Yep.
That's what needs to be focused.
I think transit can be a big solution to a lot of these problems, especially in an area like this, which is fairly dense and urban.
They need to consider not just getting from Seattle to Renton, but us in the middle and what we need.
Understood. And this plan is a great place to articulate that. Yes? Maybe it's a Brad question. Okay, just yell it.
So I know that public health is an important part of King County, and I've been really surprised that there's no public health services in this community, especially if being a lower income community. No community health clinics or public health services. And I have seen the new developments in White Center and Greenbridge, where they actually incorporated public health into their multi-family housing. So there's housing above, public health below.
So the question was that public health, sort of noticing that there's not a lot of public health services in this community, and that in White Center and Greenbridge, that has been done. And the question is, are we talking about integrating this into this plan, or are we just talking to public health about trying to do something like that in this area? And I think, I think Brad laid out fairly early in the beginning that this is a land use plan, and so those sorts of community needs probably won't be a formal part of the plan. They can absolutely be part of an appendix of community needs or things we've heard. They need to be captured. So that's the plan answer. I think the second answer is there a conversation to be had about what public health services would be available in this community? Yeah, and I'm happy to be part of that and help facilitate that conversation. Yes, sir.
I'll just comment that we pay taxes to public hospitals, district number 1, like medical center. We pay taxes to them, and they should be going to the services.
Okay.
Also just to the county, public health is part of the county.
Duly noted.
We also pay taxes.
You want to yell or you want me to come here?
It's fine. I'll project. I'm Jebediah. I'm a real estate developer. Quick question in regards to land use and zoning. A lot of these questions seem to be, I guess, the audience. I'm thinking about, have you guys engaged any nonprofit or private developers and asked them what would incentivize them to infuse capital in the Skyway community? That's my first question. And the second question is, looking through the race and social justice equity lens, I think I know it's really important in a 72%, POC community that the folks presenting need to reflect the community as well. And so it's just an offering.
You and I are like mine, and I had the same thought as I sat in the back of the room watching a succession of people not of color come up to talk to a community of color.
It just keeps happening, that's all.
Yeah, I understand.
But but really, what are you doing to incentivize developers like myself to want to come into Skyway and invest here and interact with the community to actually service what they need? And then I guess I might as well just ask this question. What are you guys doing to calculate the metrics from the amount of money this community is spending, not in Skyway, right? So there's services, there's things, there's goods, there's all kinds of things that are being spent as far as monetary value that is not happening in the 98178 zip code. So are you guys tracking that, and are you using that as a basis to then go out and find retailers or commercial vendors who can service the actual needs of the community?
So, well, I'll look to any of my colleagues if they have that data at the top of their head. I know that the county executive, his deputy, if he were here, he could tell you exactly how much tax revenue, sales tax revenue is generated in the cities versus the unincorporated area. And it's gargantuan relative to what we generate. It's one of the reasons why, from my point of view, coming into this job, economic development is the first thing we need to do. So you have a bunch of people who live here, or basically going into the incorporated area, spending their money, generating tax revenue in the cities, and then they come back here and they wonder why there isn't enough money to pay the roads.
Well, and then we have the county come to us and say, sorry, we're so poor, we can't provide you this service.
Yeah, got it. I actually just made that point. So, I mean, your point is well taken. So, to answer your first question is, I would love to have a conversation with you about what it would take to incentivize you to do it, to build in this community or any other unincorporated urban area. And I think that's going to be part of this process.
I got a jet, but
yeah, I can tell you.
The other thing is when we talk about gentrification displacement, there's several mechanisms that cause that phenomenon to happen. But the biggest piece for us that we've been noticing is because there's a lack of ownership opportunities, folks can't stay in the community. So what is the county doing to look at creating not just affordable housing for folks, but affordable home ownership opportunities, so that way they can actually attain some ownership so they can stay within the county and not have to be pushed out 10, 15 years from now because there's just a whole bunch of rental stock that's being built. And so it's just something to think about.
Yeah, agreed. So can you leave a card or something with Michael so I can get in contact with you? Or can I get in contact with you through Michael?
Yeah.
We got a meeting set up next week.
All right, great. Done and done.
For everybody here, if you didn't get my card, I'll give you one, but if you have any questions or didn't feel you guys gave a comment, ask local services at kingcounty.gov. Just one word, ask local services at kingcounty.gov. ASKLOCALSERVICES at kingcounty.gov. Ask local services at kingcounty.gov. Those questions all come to me, and I staff them out and make sure I find answers for you. So go ahead, questions, comments, we'd love to hear them. And they all become part of records, so we make sure we keep every single one. So please, ask local services at kingcounty.gov. I want to thank everybody for coming today. This was great. This was a wonderful opportunity. And again, we'll be in contact and stay in touch. Thank you, everyone. And again, spread the poll, spread the survey. Please share it amongst your friends and neighbors.